Let me go to Charles. Charles calling is from West Virginia. Hey, Charles. How are you, brother?
Good morning, Dan. Good to talk to you again.
Thank you.
Dan, I was reading on a very conservative magazine on the main article, the cover story with Steve Forbes about Bernanke, and it was titled as "Epic Failure: How the Departing Fed Chief Ruined the Dollar." And you know, you and I both like Steve Forbes, and one of the first things he said in the article was, "I believe the Fed has, in effect, made itself into a fourth branch of government." I want you to.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'd like for you to comment on is one of the things he said: a wise Fed chairman would wage a jihad against the Basel Accord,
yes,
which regulators try to weigh the risk of various kinds of bank assets. What is that? Could you tell
sure.
me a little bit about that, Dan? And glad you're back, and glad to talk to you again. God bless you.
Thank you, Charles. Great to hear from you, as always. Let me take the last spot first. Basel III is a set of rules and regulations that is an international set of banking regulations that came out of the conference, the economic conference of central bankers out of Basel, Switzerland. I don't know. I guess it's been 2 years, 3 years. I think it's been 3 years now, and we've adopted it. And it's basically adopting international rule and law in regulating our financial sector. And we've not only adopted it, we've embraced it. And, of course, the question Steve Forbes has, along with the question I have, is since when does the United States of America base what it does on international law or what is happening in the government? I mean, when's that happen? Are we soon going to be adopting all the UN? Is UN going to be governing the United States of America and what we do in our financial sectors? And what Steve Forbes was saying, we need to wage jihad against. In other words, we need to be battling with all of our might against that. Not because it's necessarily bad. That's not the point. The point is that what's in that is not necessarily bad. Some of it is, and some of it is not appropriate for a free market economy. But the bigger point is, since when do we go to a foreign country to sit with a bunch of foreign central bankers to determine some kinds of rules and regulations that we're going to adopt in the U.S. banking system? So that's what that's all about. Listen, Steve Forbes has made everybody, if you've never seen the Fed Up DVD that I did, and I'm working on a redo of that. We're going to add some more footage, but the Fed Up DVD, Steve Forbes and I were talking about the Fed. And I'll tell you talk about some candid comments from Steve Forbes about the Fed. There's no, it's one of those deals where you say, Steve, tell us what you really think about the Fed. It is very, very interesting that you've heard me say the Fed trashing our dollar over and over again. You hear me say that all the time. I've been saying it for years. I got that from Steve Forbes because Steve Forbes and I were having a conversation on this program many years ago, and Steve Forbes was saying, the Fed continues to trash the dollar. I kind of picked up on that, and I've been using it since because that's exactly what has happened. This Fed chairman, when history is written, is going to, if we have a collapse in our economy, it's going to be the politicizing. And I talked about this at great length last week about the politicizing of the Fed. And one of the things that I was talking about was an article that was written talking about the perils of the Fed being politicized and that that President Obama has politicized the Fed. And I disagreed with that because what I said is no president can politicize the Fed unless there is a consent by the Fed chairman to be politicized. In other words, I was saying then that the article was wrong to be blaming the president for the politicizing of the Fed because it wouldn't have happened had Ben Bernanke said, I refuse to be a political arm of the United States government, period. Not of Barack Obama, but of the United States government. In 1913, when the Fed was established, it was established as a private entity that would be held accountable by the Congress. That's how it was established. It was to be held accountable by the Congress because they're running the federal government's monetary system. It would be like you hiring a consultant to run your business and then, of course, expect the consultant to be accountable to your board of directors. Of course you would do that, right? It's your business. But the consultant is a separate organization. Same deal. But the Fed, under this watch of this chairman, has allowed Barack Obama and the government to use it as a political, another, as Steve Forbes said, as a fourth arm of the government. It's shameful. And Janet Yellen, or anybody else for that matter, is likely to continue the tradition.